I am a big Cuphead fan. It's a unique and satisfyingly difficult, mostly satisfying platformer. The style, music, and general ambiance is unlike any other, and I enjoy going back to it for the art style alone. Even if I can't get past Aisle 2, please help, it's been 5 years. Because I enjoy the art style of this game so much, I wanted to design my very own boss and boss level, emulating the style as best as I can. Step 1 is to gather references from the game itself. I grabbed 4 levels that I enjoy the most and have the most distinctions from each other. Looking at them, I made notes about certain points I wanted reflected in my own drawing. On the first drawing, I jotted down about how each level looks like a watercolor background. I also noted how the bosses were outlined in bolder blacks to stand out from the background. Step 2 is to get a rough sketch down of my idea. My first idea was the boss would be an end boss and you'd have to fight the animator who made you. I thought the idea was rather tongue-in-cheek and would make a funny level. For the background, I wanted it to be his studio with lots of paper, ink pots, and mugs full of pens. The boss itself, I wanted to be angry, as if he has a pressing deadline he needs to finish, but he needs to destroy his own creation too. Although I won't be actually animating this whole level, I wanted some concepts in regarding the potential enemies. My idea is once in a while, amid the other enemies that pop up, he scrunches up the paper he's currently drawing on his drafting table and will throw it behind him. As it falls, it unfurls, revealing a sentient paper enemy that you would need to shoot before hurting the main boss. Other enemies may be pencils or pens or maybe ink blots. I didn't think too hard on the others as I know the paper enemy was the one that I wanted to end up drawing. Step 3 was refining the sketch. This would be the one I'd rely on to paint under, so I needed it to be clean and detailed. If you're curious how I designed the studio, I went online to research animation studios, specifically ones from the time period that Cuphead is supposed to take place in, so the 30s and 40s. I ended up finding some cool museum photos of Disney animation studios during that time. They were pretty cool. It seemed to place quite an emphasis on a particular drafting table that they had, and I definitely would have used that. It looked very cool. I also found photos taken from that era with people actively working, just so I could see how they worked, what their stacks of paper looked like, their pens, their setup, just to kind of get an idea of how I wanted to lay this drawing out. It really helped tremendously, as an animation workspace is not going to look the same as an artist's studio. And I wanted it to look accurate. I didn't want it to just look like an artist studio. I wanted it to look more like an animation artist studio. I did have a little trouble filling up all the shelves I created. I created quite a few. I think I created, let's see, 13, I think, or 12 technically, because one of them I blocked off. But even in an office space, you will have a few empty areas, so I figured just leave some open space. I knew the character was going to block a good deal of it anyway, so I didn't worry about too many of the shelves on the right-hand side. I hope I've conveyed to you a busy environment for this piece. In the background, I also wanted to add a few characters he might have created as some nice clutter and to show he's a prolific artist. In a lot of the museum photos I saw, they would have little statues of, say, Mickey Mouse or Felix the Cat or some kind of, animated character that they were proud of. My original plan, before I realized how time intensive this would be, was to actually animate both Cuphead and the boss, and I guess along with that, maybe a couple of the enemies. Not a complex animation, but something akin to the very beginning of a Cuphead level, right after they say ready. Luckily, I stopped those thoughts about halfway through this because I don't know if you don't have any experience with animation, it's very time intensive. And I don't think it really would have added much to the drawing itself. So, because of that, I was like, nope, let's just keep it a still drawing. It's complicated enough. And I ended up really liking the end result. If they ever add an extra 30 hours to the week, I'll think about it for doing it for real. As a side note, I want to express my dislike for drawing backgrounds. Normally, I avoid them like the plague, but I absolutely loved painting this background. I'm not sure if it was due to using watercolor or, well, watercolor like brush. It's not a true one to one, or if I was just having fun with this piece, but I never found myself getting bored. Doing a watercolor style is definitely a first for me. I've dabbled digitally with watercolors maybe once or twice. I think I've done maybe a portrait or two, but doing a whole background in watercolor, or I shouldn't say in watercolor, it's still digital, so it's a lot more simple, but with a brush I'm not used to, let's just say, was not super challenging, but it was definitely different for me. I've always found it to be an intimidating medium. Digitally, it's much simpler. It doesn't behave like it would in real life. And for me, that makes it much more approachable. I've used it a little bit in real life as far as traditionally speaking, and it's okay. It's a big learning curve. It's very different than other mediums. It's one of those things where I like the look of it, but I'm not really sure how to achieve the look as well as others do. It's not one of those things where you can really pick it back up as much as other mediums or go over it. And there's no white, or you can add white with different paint, but not with the watercolor itself. If you're wondering about the brushes that I'm using, I got them on Gumroad. I believe the artist is named Stas, which is Stas. I enjoy them quite a bit, although there are many I haven't tried yet. It came with a ton of brushes. Usually, what I'll end up doing is I'll try a bunch in a pack, find one that I really like, and then never use the others. I'll just use maybe one or two. There could be like 50, and I'll just stick to like one or two. I feel like options are really wasted on me, but I like that they're there. For this piece, I also did something out of character for me. I organized my layers and I used folders, so pretty proud of myself. If I ever work in multiple layers, they have the default name, so you just end up getting layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And I have to squint at the thumbnail to decipher what it was that I drew in that one. But on this one, I knew there was a lot going on and I wanted to keep everything separate. So I named, I think, most of my layers, probably just about all of them. And then I kept them in folders and sort of organized them by what they were. So I knew I wanted to keep the shelving unit separate. So since that was the first thing I did, I kept that one by itself. And then for all the clutter objects on the shelves, I did that as its own thing. And then line work also was a separate layer, but I would organize them into folders as well. Did it make a big difference for me? Yes. Will I keep doing it? Probably not. I think for complex pieces, it's definitely important to be organized, but I find it doesn't really matter if you're doing simple drawings. Like if you're just doing, something not too highly rendered, or you just do some simple cell shading. I don't think you need to go crazy with layers unless you like to use a bunch of overlay layers or a bunch of, unique textures and stuff like that. I don't think it's really necessary. Even if you don't know too much about Cuphead, but you're just an artist or you enjoy art, I hope you can still get something from this. It was something out of my comfort zone, and I had a lot of fun doing it, and I just wanted to share that with everyone. And I've never seen anyone online make their own Cuphead level. I'm sure it exists, of course, but I've just never personally seen it, so I thought it was sort of a unique idea. Although I do really like Cuphead, I'm not very good at it. Or at some point I was maybe slightly good at it, but definitely not anymore. I'm not someone who plays platformers like at all. Normally I play first person or third person shooters or Pokemon. It's either one of those three. So going from having zero platformer experience to then straight into a very difficult platformer like Cuphead was like learning to swim by being thrown into a shark tank. It was a big learning curve for me. I did manage to get to Inkwell Isle 2 back in 2018, probably not too long after the game came out. But I got really frustrated and I never completed Isle 2. One day I'm sure I will finish it. Maybe when they add that extra 30-hour week, I'll fit that into.
If I told you that I didn't love you,
This is sort of a random thought, but I really enjoyed painting this tea kettle. I don't, or I should say coffee kettle, because this is specifically coffee. I really enjoyed painting it, just the metal. It was fun. I kind of had reference for it, definitely the general shape of it, because I wanted to get a 1940s kettle because I figured, well, he's probably going to be drinking coffee a lot. He's got a lot of mugs around his office. So I should put a coffee pot in here somewhere.
west wind wandering over land and sea. Ooh, wandering one for me. West wind whispered to him tenderly, ooh, of the love that used to be. He has gone to find adventure, restless feet must roam. Tell him love's the best adventure, and he'll find love waiting at home. So west wind, go wherever he may be. Ooh, send my loved one back to me.
I did enjoy adding some little books in here, and for some reason, I don't know why I have a hard time drawing books. There's no reason for it, but I do. And I added I was like, "Well, I gotta write something on the spines of these books." So I figured it would make sense for them to all be animation related. So I was like, "Oh, I can't fit animation on this one." So I just did how. And I think I wrote on just about all the ones that were light enough for you to see it. And then at some point, I couldn't think of any more titles. So I just did the classic little scribble. So you know something's written there, but it is up for interpretation what it could be.
Played a game from the start. It's easy to lie to strangers, but what will I tell my heart?
If you're wondering what these are animation reels. So I guess he would have some film in his office just to go over. It's sort of a different production part of animation, but again, like I said earlier, I was struggling to come up with different clutter items in his office, and when I did research online, there wasn't really a whole lot of variety, and I was thinking, well, what else is kind of related to animation? So I figured some reels thrown in there might be um, kind of interesting. Oh, and then this would be like a test shot. So maybe he did just some backgrounds and he's just comparing them. These were a very common sight that I saw when I was doing research for kind of items that would be hung around. And like I said, if you have backgrounds, they're on a different not layer since it's not that's not really what it's called, but you would have your animation paper go on top. So obviously you wouldn't have to repaint a background every time, but you would want to paint that first. And then I don't know if they had sticky notes in the 40s, but I was like, well, I want him to have a note on it somewhere. So yeah, I'll just do a sticky note. Maybe it's just a very yellow piece of paper.
I could say you'll soon be back, dear, to fool the whole town, maybe smart. I'll tell them you'll soon be back, dear, but what will I tell my heart?
So now I've just about finished the background and I'm adding some chromatic aberration, which is one of the things I wrote down in my original notes. If you look at the Cuphead levels, there is this slight aberration on everything, and it just kind of gives it this vintagey look, like things are a little bit blurry, the colors are bleeding a little bit. That would be sort of what would happen, not because of the drawing itself, but because of the medium you were watching it on, like a TV or something. So I added that. I had a hard time adjusting it the way I wanted to because I didn't want it to be too obvious, but I definitely wanted you to be able to see it if you were looking at this piece not up close. Does that make sense? So I added it pretty much to every single layer. So first I added it to the shelving unit layer, and then I added it to the object layers, and then I added it to the line art, the black lines of everything. And I think it came out nice. I like it. And oh, so these are the foreground objects. I just did like cups of pencils and some paper. I just wanted to keep it simple and just keep going with sort of the general theme of the objects in his office. I kind of detail these more than I need to, since if you look at the Cuphead levels, the foreground objects are very blurred and often darker than everything else, so I didn't need to be as detailed as I was. I probably could have gone away with a lot less detail since most of this gets hidden anyways. And I'm a little I feel like I really liked the way they looked before I blurred them, and I was like, "Ugh, but I have to. Like I have to do it. I have to do it the way it's shown." Even though I ended up really liking the way it looked before I did the final blur, I knew that it just stood out a little bit too much cuz you don't want your focus to be on them. So now I'm working on the boss itself. I didn't come up with a name with him. If you can think of one, let me know. I suppose it wouldn't really be super crazy since he's kind of just a guy, whereas most Cuphead bosses are like these crazy creatures. For this one, he's just wearing typical attire that he would at home, and I thought it would be fun to give him some bunny slippers, like he probably hasn't been out of his office for a long time.
He holds her in his arms, would you? He tells her of her charms, would you? They met as you and I, and they were only friends. But before the story ends, he'll kiss her with a sigh, would you, would you? If the boy were I, would you, would you? And would you dare to say, let's do the same as they? I would you? another you, I would shed a million tears if ever we were through. Never in a million moons could you ever be surpassed. And darling, for a million Jews, this love of ours will last. There would be no world for me if ever we would part. Where I go, your name will be right on the tip of my heart. Only once in every lifetime, someone just like you appears. Is there any greater glory, any greater thrill? Never in a million years.
Before we wrap up, I'm adding the final touches here. I first added the scrunched up paper to convey the transformation and the final unscrunched paper enemy. Hopefully, the stills make sense as to what is happening, that the paper turns from paper on his table to scrunched and then into the final enemy. By the way, scrunched up paper is not easy to draw. Even with a reference, I ended up just making up my own folds. I think it ends up looking fine. Luckily, I don't think it's something I will be drawing too often, so not a skill I really have to worry about too much. I would love to send this to the developers of Cuphead just to see what they think. It's probably a shot in the dark, but I'm going to do some research online to see if I can find a company email. Maybe they'll end up seeing it. Who knows? Or I'll just post it on the Reddit and maybe someone will send it to them.
His very name spells danger, and though he throws me down and tosses me around, he's my Apache. a feeling that is new, lost and found, lost the moments that seemed oh so long, but found my heart could sing a song since the day you came along. Gone is the dark, stormy weather that was clouding my dreams of love. Now life is light as a feather, all because of you and your love. Now I find what I thought I lost was all my gain. A rainbow came in place of rain, lost my heart when I found you.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking it, subscribing, and sharing it with your friends. Thank you, everyone.